So I'm gonna get to a quick start off. This panel is gonna talk about, the various, the 9th anniversary of blockchain, the platforms that are out there today, and what we see in the future. I'm gonna allow each panelist to introduce himself, okay? And after I pose the first question. So the first question I have is like blockchain in its 9th year, all right? There are so many platforms today, and businesses are having a hard time choosing which one, okay? So from your own perspectives and from your backgrounds, I just want your opinion on which one would you choose.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Abdullah Kablan. I'm a serial entrepreneur and the founder of a number of companies specializing mainly but not exclusively in artificial intelligence, machine learning, fintech, and professional matchmaking. I also wear a number of other hats. I'm an academic that is lecturing and researching computational finance and deep learning. I sit on the board of directors of the Malta Stock Exchange, where I also chair the blockchain committee there. And recently, and my most exciting post is that I've become an advisor for the Maltese government to be a part of their national blockchain initiative, which is cumulating now into one of the most major achievements that have been seen recently in the world, which will be announced by our Honorable Minister later today. So make sure you tune in to his speech. To answer your question, Lara, as regards to blockchain and different types of blockchain that are out there, the short opinion is it depends on the problem that we're trying to solve and depends on the issue that is at hand. Certain problems require major scalability, so we need to use an architecture that is quite scalable. Certain problems that need to be addressed using faster speed or faster processing power. We've always looked at blockchain mainly from the storage standpoint. There have been privacy issues with the traditional old type of blockchain. Now we're moving more into processing on blockchain, which is a new area that is opening other horizons for deployments of new different systems, such as AI-based systems and deep learning systems on blockchains. And for that reason, traditional architectures are not fitting in nicely. We're noticing a new type of system, such as DAGs or directed acyclic graphs, that are actually much better suited for that, and it's a part of the natural evolution of blockchain itself. We're still at the early stages. If we look at the internet itself, the internet existed as a protocol for almost 35 years, TCP/IP, until one invention in the early 90s took place that catapulted the internet to a completely different level. And that invention was the browser. So the day we had our first browser out there, we can go access the internet, we can find, search any info we want. And blockchain, in my opinion, is still waiting for its browser moment. There's a lot of fantastic research and development that's happening out there. We're trying to foster a system of innovation for people like the startups in here to come with their own systems. And for that reason, we're still waiting for the systems that fit the right problem. But at the moment, no system fits all.
Good morning, everybody. My name is James Wallace. I work for IBM. I've had the privilege of being one of the founding members of the blockchain initiative within our company. It's a real pleasure to be back in Dubai, and I think the initiatives that the Smart Dubai government have launched here is really groundbreaking and has the whole eyes of the world on Dubai. So thank you for having me. In terms of the technologies, I think it's still early days. When we set off on our blockchain journey 3 or 4 years ago, we evaluated the different types of technologies, and we talked to our clients, whether they be in the public sector or private sector, and we determined that for the majority of the blockchain world, the concept of a permissioned blockchain is important. So that means a blockchain technology where the participants know who they are transacting with, so it's visible and can sit in a world which is highly regulated. In terms of which technology will win the day, I think it's too early to say. We have, as is very well known, put a lot of our focus into the open source initiative with the Linux Foundation around Hyperledger. We believe that has all the potential to be one of the leading blockchain technologies. I hope it will be one of the ones that survives. I think there will be many that fall by the wayside. But I think it is early to say, and I think there will be the need for interoperability. So I will keep it brief.
So James, do you think some of them will die out in the end? Like,
yeah, I think so. I think the if you just look at the other technologies that have evolved over the years, many different promising technologies, and usually one or two are the ones that prevail. It may be different in blockchain.
Do you have an idea which one? I mean, so that we don't get into it right now.
Well, if you want to put me on the spot, I think clearly, Hyperledger has got a huge amount of following. You would expect me to say that.
Okay, so that will.
And I think that there are other in the public space. Clearly, Ethereum is a leading. We are working with all of them. We're not just working with one. And I think this. Ask me again in 3 to 5 years, and I'll give you a better answer.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Oliver Bressman. I'm the CEO and founder of Bressman Advisory, helping financial service companies to stay ahead of the digital disruption curve, helping them to define their digital strategy and transformation program on one hand side, and then also in the blockchain ecosystem, startups and companies to define their blockchain strategy, implement them, and helping also startups to prepare them for the ICOs. We did over 5 ICOs in the last 6 months. And then also on top of that, running as a president of Crypto Valley Association, one of the biggest ecosystem for blockchain and cryptographic related technologies. Coming to the question, what are the critical success factors and for the blockchain platforms? I think the race is still open. We are comparable maybe 20 years ago with Internet 1.0. There's a lot of investments going into the development of those blockchain platforms. I think success factors from my perspective will be, as we discussed, scale. Can we handle millions, billions of transactions in a real-time connected world? Are we able to perform? The performance will be important. The ability to embrace an ecosystem of development community, like 10 years ago with iOS and Android, to mobilize them to build application on those platforms will be critical. To run those platforms in an open source environment, to get as much as possible critical mass of developers into the community. And at the end, I believe, like in the database business, because right now for me, the blockchain platforms are more the next generation of databases. I think we will see in the future still multiple platforms be front-running like in a typical database business. And we will see hybrid versions of implementation, because they're enterprises that then they have to keep confidentiality of certain data. There will be information that has to be more public, because we're moving into more new ecosystems. According to McKinsey, there will be over 12 new ecosystems built on blockchain and IoT, over 170 trillion of new revenue. That's only possible if we move away from the silos of industries into a more connected world. So having said that, if you look at these parameters, there will be maybe another iOS, Android-like development out there, and can be the front-running leading technologies in the next few years.
Introduction. I'm also from the Crypto Valley, Ralf Klabuschnik. We are running their business center. We call it Crypto Valley Labs, and have already more than 50 startups, funds, service provider over there. And we're going to do this international. And I'm here in Dubai because I think Dubai is one of the best places to do this. And this audience today shows that I'm right. So thanks for coming. Now to the first question, Lara. It's hard for me to say anything else what the 3 colleagues already said. So what is important to understand in the moment with blockchain, we are creating the internet of value. And we're solving a big problem. We're solving the double spending problem. Before, when I sent you something, I sent you a copy. Today, when I send you something, I'm able to send you digital, the original. That's the main thing, and that's really great. And we have to scale this, and we have to get the right platform for this, but we are not yet there, for sure not. Switzerland is getting strong because by accident, Vitalik decided to build Ethereum in Zug, and that's the accident why we are so strong today. And I think there will be other accidents in the future to get the right platforms done, to scale, and to work on that. And we know a few projects working on the stealth mode right now doing this. And I'm looking forward to that, to see how we can handle trillions of transactions in blockchains in the future.
My name is Jahan Chu, and I'm the managing partner of Kinetic Capital, which is a blockchain platform based in Hong Kong. We have an asset management arm in which we have 5 different investment funds ranging from blockchain equities to cryptocurrencies. We have a cryptocurrency hedge fund as well as a cryptocurrency long-only fund and 2 tracker funds for BTC and ETH. In addition, I'm the founder of the Ethereum meetup in Hong Kong, so I run the Ethereum community. We started that in March of 2014. I'm also the co-founder of the Bitcoin Association of Hong Kong from January 2014. Really excited to be here and kind of discover all of the really impressive development that's happening in the Middle East and the real commitment from the government and the community. To answer your question about where I see this all going 9 years in, I'll take a slightly perhaps alternative view, where I think there will be some consolidation in the blockchain space in terms of the different technologies, but I think that will give rise afterwards to perhaps a super bloom of different technologies. If I think about the nature of technology and blockchain technology, what's really behind it is actually people and communities. Ironically, all of this kind of very advanced technology is backed by people. And if you think about the very, very long tail of how many different types of interests and communities that are out there, and you take the analogy of Amazon and how it can support books and products based on such niche ideas as like the feeding and raising of African parrots, or it can really create markets for very niche communities. I think blockchains can do the same thing. In the lobby next door, we saw Ambrosis, which is a food and supply chain blockchain. I saw a new one, which was a halal kind of blockchain. And I think in the future, actually, we'll have the opportunity to see all of these blockchains survive with a very, very long tail because of the preponderance of blockchains, the cosmoses, the polka dots, which will connect all blockchains together. So I think actually we'll start to see blockchains and tokens as ubiquitous as speech and expression. And I think it's a really exciting prospect. But I do agree with my esteemed kind of co-presenters, where there will be some consolidation as the market finds its balance.
Thank you very much, Jahan, and thank you all for the answering. So the next question I have is this. Sometimes, when you keep reading what's going on, we started first with a Bitcoin, which was proof of work, and then we went to proof of stake, and now we have, proof. And it seems it's evolving in a way that it's become very different from what the 4 founders of blockchain wanted it to be. Do you think it's going to move back into being more centralized kind of community instead of having it very universal and transparent and so forth? Do you understand what I'm trying? Yeah? Did everyone get the question?
You're referring mainly to forking, and that is happening?
Yes, when you start forking and it kind of stops moving from the very concept of what it was about, about having this full consensus, having this full transparency, and so forth. So do you think there's going to be a new form of blockchain or another type of, or not even a blockchain, something else that comes out of, yes, 1 minute.
If we're referring to the 3 main types of blockchain at the moment, public, private, and consensus or hybrid blockchains, each one solves a specific problem in its own right. So we have the public one where all the data is there, it's open, it's accessible, but we have issues of scalability, issues of privacy, but it is the fundamental concept of having an open ledger. Private blockchains have been accused initially of being nothing but glorified databases. However, now we're noticing as this ecosystem of private blockchains is growing, like with what Ripple is doing, providing it to more than one bank, it takes us back using, again, the same internet analogy as when we had internet, but we had intranets in the 90s, and then everything converged. So we're seeing a move towards there, and consensus is the best of both worlds. coming to the idea of forking, I believe what's happening on the forking front is a little bit more on the behavioral side or human behavior than anything technological. We know that with every big idea or ideology, or after, when Caesar dies, everyone actually splits on their ideas. And if there's a valid argument for the SegWit side and the Bitcoin front, and for the Bitcoin Cash fork, which actually decided to move from 1 megabyte to 8 megabytes, which is what Satoshi Nakamoto, or whoever he is, or the consortium of people who claim to be Satoshi, have hinted to in 2010. Anticipating that scalability is going to be an issue and we will have to split. So when you have a number of developers that are out there, and each one is actually trying to address the same problem of, for example, scalability and speed in a different way, this will always happen. However, as my fellow panelist has said, we will notice a convergence. The market, at the end of the day, will decide which model or which system is going to survive. At the start of any new technology, there's always going to be different variations of the same system, different interpretations, but at the end of the day, the ones that will survive will be a little bit more of a natural selection process, where survival of the fittest, and the fittest in this case will have to be the one that is appealing to the community the most.
Thank you. I'm just going to rephrase. We still have the blockchain the way it initially started, or will we have other versions that are close to what we call blockchains?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think we'll see lots of different flavors. I think the cryptocurrency-based blockchains, the ones where you hear mostly about forking and changes in the governance. I don't really have a strong point of view on that. I think that will happen. Where I'm more focused is on blockchain for business and for commerce, where things like scalability, things like performance, obviously security, all these things are of critical importance. So that's really why some of these private blockchains have started developing, to try and actually counterbalance some of the challenges with the public and cryptocurrency-based ones. So in that respect, you could say already the start of the movement away from the traditional original types of blockchain. And it's for good reason. The private ones, amongst other reasons, are trying to drive much higher degree of performance. And there's no mining involved, right? So you can have a much smaller group of people validating a transaction. It can be as many as 2 organizations rather than millions of people. So I think it's already happening, and I think there is room for both in the world for now.
Thank you.
If I can just jump in, I think we're really just at the kind of early. We're still very much at the early stages of exploring what the technology can do. In the same way that the internet was a platform and a technology protocol upon which so many applications were built, so is blockchain. It's really just that starting point, and I think we're really just starting to scratch the surface. Exploring what tokenization can do, exploring what hardware can do with blockchain technology, exploring. We haven't even really understood how far it can go. Ambrosius, I know, is doing something with an idea of bonded tokens, where you think of these tokens as like these red blood cells which carry information and can be reused. I would love to see what an evaporating token looks like. What happens when value does not persist? And I think that if you look at it in that perspective, we can really start to dream quite far about the technology. And really what we think of as quote-unquote blockchain, and what we think of as where it started or what it should be, that's just the beginning. And I think we have a very, very long road to go, and what's most important is our commitment to continue developing on top and just pushing the envelope.
Even after 9 years, it's the 9th anniversary since the first Bitcoin. So you still consider we're in the early stages, and there's still so much more we can achieve with the
I think you have to differentiate. I agree with James on the private blockchain side. For the enterprise, that you have a closed ecosystem. Proof of work is not necessary, so you don't have that scale performance issue. But if you zoom out in the world, that I think through the Internet of Things that we get more connected, and we are not anymore working in just an industry silo. I think we were moving on more into a public blockchain environment, and here we have the scalability performance issue. So the proof of work has to change, because I think scalability is limited. It's very from a cost perspective. The mining takes a huge percentage of the transaction cost. Plus, the underlying token or cryptocurrency for a smart contract is beefing up also the cost. So I see even in the Crypto Valley environment, startups moving away from that a little bit because they pay 2-3 million just for currency to manage their smart contracts of that. So it's not, from that perspective, I think we'll see new technology already arising. And I think one of them is the IOTA Tangle organization using the network, the mesh environment, to get transaction verified, because in the Internet of Things, you need this environment to allow massive volume of transaction for almost low transaction fees or no transaction fees. And so I'm a strong believer in the public blockchain environment. I think the technology has to evolve. And I think the technology, like the IOTA Tangle, from my perspective, is one of the alternatives that we will see going forward. And this is the reason why industry companies, the car manufacturers, supply chain, they're looking now into those kind of alternatives, because that's something that has to be tackled.
Thank you. Rob, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, in my personal opinion, we are talking right now too much about the technique. Yeah?
About?
Because anyone here in the room knows what HTTP is. It's the protocol of the internet. And 20 years ago, everyone wanted to understand what it is. Today, no one understands it, but everyone uses it for the internet. And I think the same will be in the blockchain space when we are talking about use cases and not about forking and upgrading and scaling. Then we are getting to the next level. And I think maybe it's not the right audience to talk about how hard it is to fork a blockchain and how get into the next level. It's more the question, what is the use case for the future?
I can confirm that out of my discussion with boards and CEOs of banks, I think discussion has evolved the last 12 months from just this is another technology game changer into how my business model will be getting disrupted because the blockchain is simplifying business processes and market infrastructure, and also in which new ecosystem I want to play. Should I go into the mobility space that Mercedes is now coming up to integrate different mobility services over smart contracts? Should I be part of that ecosystem? Or should I go into the smart home environment, managing my mortgages in an interconnected world in there? So the discussion has evolved from less technology into understanding the power of the technology, into is my current business in danger? And what are new opportunities out there that I can team up in an ecosystem? That means sometimes in non-financial service industry partners that I have to figure out who's out there that bring different services together as a new value proposition.
I would actually just reinforce that. I think that's an excellent point, Oliver. The discussion really has shifted towards a business discussion. I would say in my sort of 25 plus years in technology, this is the first time in history that I recall where you've had a business CEO level discussion and a technology discussion on the same topic. It's quite an unusual thing, and it's definitely the shift is more towards not the technology. The technology is proven enough. It's now, what is the business value? How can I disrupt my industry, make better value, or improve, customer experience, all these things. And I think to the earlier point, I don't think, in 5 years' time, no one's going to know they're using blockchain, right? What's going to happen is business processes are going to be improved. They may see, an end user may see a better experience. They may be able to settle on a transaction, or they just get on the bus and go. There's all sorts of different use cases. But the average person won't know that it's blockchain or care, frankly, whether it's blockchain or not.
I just wanted, yes.
Just one.
And one thing, I promise.
Just
yes.
one very quickly. I think it's also a fundamental mistake to keep on referring to the technology as blockchain technology. And I am a proponent and believer that the technology that should be referred to as DLT, or distributed ledger technology, which is why even as a government in Malta, we're looking at regulating the technology. We're not referring to blockchain because it's one of many solutions, like Oliver has discussed in here, and he mentioned IOTA, and IOTA uses the Tangle. And the Tangle outperforms blockchain in every way, shape, or form. faster, quantum resistant, and it is a blockless peer-to-peer network. So it's blockchain without the blocks or the chain, if we can describe it like this. There's the hashgraph, there's Spectre, there are many other architectures that are coming out there, and the umbrella term should be DLT or distributed ledger technologies, because if we focus on blockchain, we are running in the risk in that in a few years, and IBM has done fantastic strides on quantum computing. When quantum computing becomes a reality, blockchains as we know them will all fail, but something like the Tangle, for example,
wouldn't they become more, this was my question and I wanted to go into.
it will take 4 or 5 quantum computers to achieve consensus for you and take over the network. So that's how easy it is if quantum computer. But in the case, for example, of another architecture like the Tangle, so if we look at blockchain as like a 2D graph of blocks of cryptographic hashes, we have increased or made it much more exponentially complex for it to be broken with something like the Tangle, because it moves in 3D, essentially. So we have blocks of IoT devices everywhere.
Are you a Tango, proponent?
I mean, as a technology, I respect it quite a lot. I'm a firm believer that the Tangle is a superior technology. There are others out there. There's the Hashgraph, for example, which is a second derivative of blockchain. So instead of using the protocol that is called Gossip, that blockchain is built on, it uses another protocol called Gossip about Gossip, which means that in Gossip, every node sends every single piece of information that it knows to every other node. So you can shoot it 1,000 times. But in Gossip about Gossip, you only send the piece of information and who gave it to you, so you send it 5 or 6 times. Faster and much more secure.
So this is what I come back to, and this is the main aim that I wanted the panel to begin with, is that today we still don't know which platform, will survive. Each platform is solving one problem of the blockchain, or is addressing one business issue or one issue. So let's say that we have a lot of platforms. Do you see that, is there a way that people are working together or organizations are working together to try and get these integrated to talk to each other, just like we've done in the past? And if so, where are you at that point? Okay. And
I think that from the collaborative standpoint, the interoperability standpoint, that's really this is I think the best defense against the my database could do this type of argument, which is interoperability. And I think that projects like Polkadot, projects like Cosmos, there are a number of projects which are, again, these blockchain to blockchains, which will enable different platforms to talk to each other. It's a process, it will take time, but these are projects which are already in development, which should be launching at least in a beta stage in the next 6 to 12 months. I think this is actually partially the antidote to the kind of the next siloization of technology, which we really see in existing kind of technical infrastructure. I mean, this is the beauty of blockchain, that the interoperability of these chains. And I think that these hybrid solutions of private chains, authority chains, federated chains, in addition to public chains, they can all work together. And it's less important to choose the right blockchain at this stage, because they're all evolving so quickly. I think, again, it's more important to stay nimble, to stay committed, to keep developing, to try and focus on the development, focus on the education, and just keep working at it. And ideally, if it is a strong technical platform, regardless of whether there are a few others, you'll be able to eventually integrate and interoperate with all of the others. So I think of it more of as a block fabric, a block, a multitude of chains which will survive and hopefully thrive.
I think we have to move out a little bit, go up from a lowest technology level, and for me the blockchain technology is pretty, on the stack level, pretty low. And I think there will be involvement with Hyperledger, with other technologies, I think will mature, will come together. I think we have to shift the focus, and I see this also with my customers, into the next level, that your business logic will be handled in a different way. And I want to focus here on the term smart contracts. Because at the end, smart contracts we can think is like a contract that is being used and replicated into software. At the end, is your business logic that you have in your Microsoft application is becoming now part of the smart contract, and saying, if something happens, do A, B, C, D. And it's connected with data feeds, sensors, etc., and use the ledger technology to store information. So we see now the discussion more that smart contracts are becoming the integration layer between different industry, between different companies. And those software companies that are providing smart contract languages are developing this in a ledger agnostic way. They don't care at the end, is it Hyperledger, is it Ethereum, or is it R3, etc. I think they will provide this, like in a database environment, integration points, and provide a language that your business people, your lawyers will work on. And I think that's the big change for me going forward at the end, removing the business logic out of your enterprise silo into a horizontal integration, that the complexity that we have to synchronize businesses between companies, between industry, will be moved down on that smart contract layer. And that's the big game changer from my perspective. I think the ledger technology gives you the ability to store information in a professional way, much more easier going forward. But the logic layer is now also coming, getting disrupted. It has impact for your enterprise architecture, has an impact that new industries are coming. And this is the reason why I give you one example that companies going into new ecosystem using it, because Mercedes-Benz announced this mobility operating system. There's a new ecosystem of $2 trillion building up to integrate flights, train, car, everything into one services. And instead of building the gigantic new system, I think it will be integrated into the different industry. So the industry will still maintain the customer relationship, but are able to integrate different services into one services and using the smart contract as an integration layer. And that's something that I think that's the new business model that we have to think about. We're not talking about aggregation, we're talking about integration to smart contracts that are leveraging the new technology from that perspective. And these are a game changer in new industry, and again, it's not limited to mobility, it's not limited to smart home area that I see that real estate is coming together with insurance, telco, utilities, that broken workflows are coming, getting digitalized through the technology. So that's something I would say is the exciting part. And I think we have to focus more on those kind of layers. And I'm working with startups like Dion, for example, that are working with Medis on those kind of projects.
Thank you. Jim, do you wanna-
Yeah, just to add to that, I think another way to look at the same thing is, if you think about the transfer of an asset, whether it be a tangible asset or an intangible asset, across different networks. I think this concept is emerging of the network of networks, which is really talking about interoperability between different networks. And we're already starting to see that. We've got some examples where multiple networks are actually collaborating together. The bit that's not clear to me yet is whether one protocol you can actually transfer an ownership of an asset from one different technology to another, or whether it's more that they interconnect some way at more of a business logic level. I think this touches a little bit on what Oliver was saying. I think this, the smart contract as the way of tracking the asset and the logic behind that is emerging. But there's no doubt in my mind that interoperability in some shape or form is inevitable. And I mean, one example, we have a pilot running in the South Pacific doing real-time remittances, payments. And that is a solution that's in the market. And it uses two different types of technology. It uses Hyperledger for the messaging, and it uses the Stellar network with their cryptocurrency lumens for the settlement piece. So that's one solution. It's transparent to the users which technology is being used. So I think we'll see more and more of that. Yeah.
I just want to, because we don't have much time left, I want to ask this final question because it's kind of like a big topic right now, and I think it does affect the development of platforms for the future of blockchain. You have a lot of ICOs going on, and everyone's saying there's a bubble or there's not a bubble. So how are the role of ICOs and investing and in startups today either going to hinder the development of a blockchain platform or actually help it and push it? Just like a 1-minuter, and then we're going to take Q&A from the attendees.
I'd like to jump in this. For me, the blockchain world at the moment is talking about three things. It's cryptocurrencies on the one side, it's disrupting the venture capital, ICOs on the other side, and it's process innovation on the third side. And I really like what the government of Dubai is doing in terms of process innovation, of bringing new solutions and working on that. And we heard a lot of that about that. And the biggest risk in the moment, what I see for the development of that, we will see a crash, either on the side of cryptocurrencies or on the side of ICOs. And people who don't know when they are talking about blockchain will say, we always said it's all bullshit. Sorry for that word, but they will not, yeah, they will get scared and they will not see what are they talking about. It's not a cryptocurrency, it's not a process innovation, and that's important to see this technology came to stay, and there are some risks in it in the moment because there's going a lot of money into this market, and it gives us huge chances, but we should stay this. This is a hype circle. It will break down, and on the short term we overestimate, and on the long term we usually underestimate, and we are exactly in this situation right now.
I have a totally different view on that. Number one, if you look at all use cases in the industries, across the industries, the highest maturity level is if you use a cryptocurrency to execute a business process. You cannot rely on the existing banking infrastructure to do the payment in 2 or 3 days. Everything is going to a real-time environment, so you need kind of cryptocurrency. Is it the existing one, or the certain central banks are working on cryptocurrency? So we need cryptocurrency going forwards, digital money, to enable micropayments, etc., going forward. So I think this will not going away. I think we'll see more maturing. We go to up and downs, but I think this will not disappear. Number two is let me finish. And number two is on the ICO side. I think ICO is now morphing into the IPO business. I see investment banking boutiques now coming into the business because I think this is a different way of raising capital, using a digital platform, applying the highest requirements from a legal perspective and regulatory perspective, but using the best practice out of the IPO businesses, because I think you see that ICOs are becoming more pre-sale, book building activities, etc. So at the end, it gives an access for startups to access to a global pool of capital, and in a more digitalized way, in a more professional way. Secondly, I see already also more mature companies that already raised 30, 40 million, that means the series A, B, C companies, going into the ICO-like business because they cannot afford every year to raise 5, 10 million, and that takes too much money. So I think what we are saying is the capital market will embrace it. We will see more a hybrid of the traditional business and ICO. That means that you securitize tokens that is a security, and that can be distributed to your traditional distribution network of banks. And so I think it will evolve. We are moving out of the Wild West into a professional capital market regulated environment. And again, we're going through certain issues of the past will bubble up, but the economics and then also the way how we have to digitalize is a must-do from my perspective.
Okay, I have 1 more minute. I want to give, if James and Abdullah want to say something before we go to Q&A. And
Just in 1 minute, I won't take long in this. I mean, at the moment, or the past year was approved that we had a gold rush with the ICO side of the world. A lot of companies were raising money, a lot of very high quality projects, a lot of very low quality projects, and there was a lot of noise out there, and the investors found it very difficult to even distinguish. However, we have to remember that all this has happened in an unregulated environment, and the lack of regulation, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of over-regulation, but the lack of regulation is a big problem in this market, which is why, again, representing the Maltese government here, we have looked at regulating this space, but by understanding the technology. We believe that the financial services regulator does have stake in this, but someone has to understand the technology itself, so there should be a form of technology regulator, which is why we're moving towards a virtual currency act, which will regulate the space and will distinguish based on a on the technology and the quality of the technology itself, what should be consumed by the investors, by the public themselves, because there's a big danger out there. At the moment, almost everyone out there has a crypto portfolio investing in a lot of ICOs, and like my fellow panelists here said, it's a bubble that's probably gonna burst any time, and there would be a major loss. So regulation is quite important, and we are moving heavily towards that direction.
Yeah, just speaking as a firm which actually kind of professionally invests in ICOs. I mean, I personally have invested in over like 50 or 60 ICOs myself, and as a firm, we look at least, you know, I think we probably, at this stage, probably invest in maybe 3 or 4 token sales a week. And so we're very rapidly turning over. What's actually missing from this side of you know, the story of like capital deployment and the kind of boom and bust is actually the cultural phenomenon, the social phenomenon behind the participation in the ICOs in these token sales. And I heard a new acronym which I quite liked, which actually goes back to what Oliver was saying about the long tail of tokenized securities, which absolutely is going to be much larger than all of the kind of utility tokens, which is a tokenized asset offering, a TAO, which was quite a nice phrase. But I do think that we're really just at the beginning. There will be kind of corrections along the way, but I think the overall trend in terms of being able to have these token-generating events is just going, you know, much further.
That question, just because I wanted to relate it with the platforms, because every ICO that's coming out is built on a different platform. I really want to give time for our.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to reinforce the point. I mean, I think it's a question of maturity of the market. If you look around what's happening around the globe, you're seeing more and more regulation coming in. I mean, we need the ability to use tokens to actually enable the transactions to close instantly. The cryptocurrency piece obviously is being used for that. ICOs, I think, is here to stay, but will end up being regulated. I think it's a very innovative mechanism. So that was it, the super quick version.
James.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very interesting panel. Thank you very much, all of you. And I want to now. So I have like 3 minutes for maybe 3 questions, or no, less, 2. Who wants? Yes.
Wow, what a great start to these 2 days. Thank you. My name is Peter Vandal, CEO of Strategos, and I had a question specifically for James around the use case in the South Pacific, around the remittances. You say using lumens as the token to transfer value from one place to the other. Once it reaches recipients in the South Pacific, how are they monetizing that?
Yeah, so, I mean, we can talk offline. It's probably more than a 1-minute answer, but essentially we're working with a company called ClickX, who are the market maker in that region, doing the remittances. And you need, because you're transferring from one fiat currency to another, you need to have some mechanism to do that exchange. So the lumens, we're actually using lumens for about 2 seconds, right? So you're going from UK pounds into Tongan dollars or whatever the currency is in Tonga, and it's just literally been used for that settlement piece. I can talk to you about it more later, and if you want to listen to my keynote, I'll be talking about it as well there.
But I think this is that the market structure is changing, because this will disrupt the whole corresponding banking business. It will go to peer-to-peer payment, and that's something that I think is unstoppable from my perspective now.
My name is Sangeeta Sridhar, representing a boutique consultancy in crypto and ICO deployment. My question here is, we are getting back to the traces of the internet, which began as a shared network. It was nobody's single ownership. And after so many years, we are coming back to a similar scenario where a technology is forced to become a partner. At the same time, we are also touching very sensitive sectors such as the finance, the governance, and public services.
So your question?
So my question on this is, what are the best use cases so far? Taking this technology as a top-down deployment from the government level as a platform provider for nurturing the industry scenario. What are the best use cases you are aware of?
Give me a use case, in one industry. Best use case.
Was it? I didn't really understand the question. For government?
She wants to know the best use case so far for blockchain, like one word.
I think it's right now, it's, as Jim says, it's a global payment business, cross-border payment. It's coming. It's payment right now, and then followed by trade finance.
Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. This is Gibson from Tribe Blockchain from Australia. I have one general question. Are we looking forward towards Hyperledger Ethereum alliance, or a sort of a merger or a hybrid platform to work together on?
There is already an Ethereum implementation inside of Hyperledger. Hyperledger is not a technology, it's a governance framework, of which there are many different kind of technical implementations, IBM Fabric, as well as Ethereum's kind of Monax implementation. So in a sense, they're already together. Interoperability.
As well, especially for the super nerds out there who love their coding. I mean, at the moment we have a big problem, because if we want to integrate two different systems, let's say two different implementations on Ethereum, theoretically all you have to do is to get two head nodes, link them together via GET, G-E-T-H, and then use Node.js for your integration, and it should work. But more often than not, all you get is running out of memory. So the system was not actually designed for that. However, my hope is that eventually that integration will happen and it will converge.
All right, I want to really thank you very much, and thank the audience very much for listening in.